God damn it. Why does this code not want to work? Oh, I see now. Got it. Hey everyone. Now that I'm getting back into the swing of things, and I'm trying to build additions onto what I've worked on previously, I'm beginning to realize how many issues there are with my current plan of action. However, before we talk about the bad, let's talk about what I was actually able to get done, starting with the shotgun. The shotgun, if you remember, was my first try at changing how a weapon fired. Instead of shooting a single bullet, it shoots a spray of them. Each bullet individually deals less damage than most other weapons, but together they pack quite a punch. This is all well and good, however there are a couple issues with it. For one, I need to update it to use our new, simpler aiming and recoil system, which was fairly straightforward since I had already done that for all the other weapons. The more unique task was fixing the reload. Because we were using magazines as the basis for our reloads, you couldn't single load a shell like you'd expect to. Now that we have item stacking properly implemented, I've set up an override on the reload function that works exactly how you'd expect it to. With this now working, I set the animator up, and now each shell getting inserted into the weapon increases the number of shots by 1. See, that was fairly easy to do because it was simply a spin on something I'd done before. The big task for this devlog was figuring out how to implement AI enemies to shoot at and who would shoot back at you. This is where our little red friend from the introduction comes in. Alfred Mogus is an AI agent that can walk around the map, which was actually much simpler to implement than I thought it'd be. There were a few quirks with the nav mesh system, however I was able to get them worked out for the most part. I essentially copied the structure of the player's state machine to use as the skeleton for the AIs. However, the implementation of the states is pretty different. For example, Al's root states are now either alive or dead rather than being based on how he's moving in the world. The transitions are also based on what information he has, such as if he sees a target or if he has a pre-made patrol path to follow. His vision cone is based off the Kiwi Coder's tutorial on the subject. It can be dynamically resized, and what is detected can be changed via a layer mask. With this setup, he can detect, chase, and shoot the player if it's in sight range. If the player exits his sight range, he'll return to his patrol. And now, the bad news. This entire work period, I've been running into dead ends for development. Things I want to do, but I can't with how things are currently set up. Part of this has to do with the different way features are implemented into both the AI and players. More specifically, the lack of shared properties between the two make applying damage to and killing the player a weird system if I were to just go ahead and do that. I think a better way of doing this is yet another rework of the player and AI to use a shared set of abstract classes with different implementations. A much more substantial development dead end is the inventory system, and in more ways than one. One of the goals I set for myself this week was implementing a generic way to drag and drop one item onto another and have the two items interact in some way. I couldn't really manage to find a clear-cut way of setting these interactions up because of the various item types we have. Beyond that, I wasn't really sure how to have the AI hold an inventory grid and actively check to use it, which presents a limit with how I'd be able to scale this system. I even tinkered with making a UI toolkit version to reduce the number of game objects in the scene before running into one of the first problems I had with the grid system, that being, how do I pre-populate a grid before runtime? Right now I'm able to do so because of the fact I'm using game objects. Each grid checks how many children it has and finds a spot for them. Figuring out how to do this in UI Toolkit seems to be an exceedingly tedious process. So I got to thinking, why did I want to use this system again? And the conclusion was to make resource management an active part of combat and to have long-term progression like Escape from Tarkov. However, once I got rid of the procedural recoil system, that sped up the pace of play quite a bit, to the point that I think slowing the game down with this inventory system would be an active detriment to development. It's hard to work with, and I think it'll likely clash with the pace of combat once the AI are more fleshed out. So, at this point, I think I need to take a page from the book of Bennett Foddy.
When you're building a video game world, you're building with ideas. And that can be like working with quickset cement. You mold your ideas into a certain shape that can be played with, and in the process of playing with them, they begin to harden and set until they're immutable, like rock. And at that point, you can't change the world, not without breaking it into pieces and starting fresh with new ideas.
I think I'm going to restart the project, though not from scratch. The main point of doing this is to cut any dependencies from the inventory system and the item database. Anything that doesn't depend on the item database is going to be a fairly easy transfer, essentially just a copy and paste. Anything that does depend on the inventory system will instead be replaced with something much simpler. This includes the bulk of items, consumables, and weapons. I sincerely like my original idea, however I don't think I'd be able to maintain it. One of the benefits of running into so many problems is that you can also run into some interesting solutions. While setting up the player's hitbox colliders, I ran into just such a case, and I'll be releasing a video on it next week. If you want to know why some games don't let you aim straight down, Or if you want to follow the project and get updates in the future, be sure to subscribe so you know when a video goes live. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like because it does help a ton. And if you have any questions or recommendations, be sure to comment down below. And I will see you next time.